afternoon and happy Sabbath, Covenant Advent Church. And good afternoon and happy Sabbath to those of you who've joined us online. Welcome to our evening study. Thank you for joining, and I pray you'll be richly blessed as we continue worshiping for the remainder of the Sabbath together. We will start our service with hymn number 253. Please take your hymnals in hand and turn to hymn number 253. Hymn number 253. Hymn 253. There's no other name like Jesus. 'Tis the dearest name we know. 'Tis the angels' joy in heaven. 'Tis the Christians here below. Sweet name, dear name. There's no other name like Jesus. Sweet name, dear name. There's no other name like Jesus. There's no other name like Jesus. When the heart with grief is sad, there's no other name like Jesus. When the heart is free and glad. Sweet name, dear name. There's no other name like Jesus. Sweet name, dear name. There's no other name like Jesus. 'Tis the hope that I shall see him when in glory he appears. 'Tis the hope to hear his welcome that my fainting spirit cheers. Sweet name, dear name. There's no other name like Jesus. Sweet name, dear name. There's no other name like Jesus. If he wills that I should labor in his vineyard day by day, then 'tis well if only Jesus blesses all I do and say. Sweet name, dear name. There's no other name like Jesus. Sweet name, dear name. There's no other name like Jesus. If he wills that death's cold finger touch my feeble mortal clay, then 'tis well if only Jesus is my dying trust and stay. Sweet name, dear name. There's no other name like Jesus. Sweet name, dear name. There's no other name like Jesus. Amen. I'll now turn the hour over to Pastor Lloyd Grubb, who will be continuing with the message from earlier today.
So welcome again for those who were with us earlier, as it is a storm, not a rain going on outside, so we had lost power. So we had lost power just when I was about to close, as we're getting close to 1:30. So we'll pick back up where we started, where we almost ended. Probably was a good thing to end at that note, and then we'll take it from there. So welcome again to those who are on here, and we just continue from where we left off. Let us pray. Thank you, O Lord, again for having a sweet name and a wonderful name, dear Lord, and we can celebrate in thy word and in thy truth, and know that, dear Lord, the truth has set us free, and truly we can live free indeed. May you bless us, we pray, for Christ's sake. Amen. So we'll continue from where we left off, right? And I'll just escape out of here, and I'll go down to where we left off. All right, so now we're even further. So notice here where we left off from Revelation chapter. So we go straight to Revelation 18. So Revelation 18 is where I was about to go to before the thunder and lightning took us out. And so it's still raining here. I don't know where it's raining, if it's raining where you're at, or you have sunshine guarantee where you're at, if you're, I guess, the Greens. So in Revelation 18, verse 23, it says here, "And the light of the candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants, the business people, were the great men of the earth, and by thy sorceries were the nations deceived." So as I was saying in Revelation 17, when we stopped, or when we were brought to an end, is by thy sorceries the nations were deceived. So this is both, I believe, philosophical and with substances. And in all worship, pagan worship, substances were used, but also philosophy. So philosophy is combined with substance so that they can deceive people. And in societies, we see that a lot of the time, this is part of the society. The society can be negatively impacted, but they accept the negative impact because they're high or drunk. Literally what's happening. So the word sorcery there is witchcraft. And witchcraft is also viewed as pharmakia. That's so the word sorcery, so Revelation 18, verse 23, sorcery at the end there. By thy sorceries were all the nations deceived. It can be rendered by thy witchcraft, or it can be rendered by thy pharmakia. So we can see any area in the world where there's a heavy amount of witchcraft, people can be in dire poverty, living a terrible life, and they're fine with it. They're not rebelling. They just kind of go along with life. Any area that they have a lot of drugs, people can be fine with it and they go along with life in dire poverty, and they have no problem with it. But the leaders keep doing what they're doing and ripping off the people and stuff like that. And nobody rise up against them, because by thy sorceries were the nations deceived. And so we find drugs is a major thing. The only problem now is that we have that in the first world nations, drugs are a significant problem, but it's happening all over the world, and we can say that's the truth. So continue reading here. I wanted to read about psychoactive drugs, just to define some things as we go on into the afternoon here. Notice here, a psychoactive drug, psychopharmaceutical or psychotropic, is a chemical substance that changes brain function and result in alterations in perception, mood, consciousness, cognition, or behavior. So the drug, the psychopharmaceutical, the psychotropic, or the psychoactive drug, is whichever classification you're using, will change a person's perception. So this is important for what I want to communicate this afternoon with you here. The perception. So whatever is going on, you could perceive it differently from person to person. But if a person sees the same thing, they can perceive it differently if they're under substance, whatever psychoactive substance they're under, period. Mood. So it could be a happy mood, and the person's sad. Or it could be a sad event and the person's happy. Person has no proper bearing. Or the person could be numb. So if something is happy, they're numb to it. If it's sad, they're numb to it, because they're just numb to all feeling. Consciousness. So what is consciousness? What is being awake? Person has no control over that. Cognition, that means how you recognize things, what you recognize in front of you. These are important brain functions that are affected. And then also behavior, the person behaving in a way that does not make sense. You say, why they're doing that? Because they're on the drugs. So these substances may be used medically, recreationally, or for purpose to improve performance or alter one's consciousness, or entheogens, induce spiritual experience. For rituals, so that's why I said earlier, it is used for rituals, and for spiritual or shamanic purposes, or for research. So these are all ways. So when we talk about, it's very broad because we cannot really define this simply by saying this is a secular event. You know, there's people who say, well, it's a conservative, or it's a liberal. The liberal city is the conservative, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just people use it in religious experience, they use it whatever. So when you read Revelation 17 or Revelation 18, and it comes to this mind about business and psychoactive drugs, or pharmacia, where we get the word pharmaceutical or pharmacia, it's the same thing. It's just used in different experience. So I'll read that last part again. It is used to induce spiritual experiences for rituals, spiritual, or shamanistic purposes, or for just research. People use LSD just for research, right? They just say, oh, I'm just going to research and see what it's going to do. As a matter of fact, you can get this from Proverbs chapter 3, that it seems like Solomon had researched some of these things himself. In Galatians chapter 5, verse 19 and 20. Galatians 5, verse 19 and 20, we hear the same thing being repeated by Paul. Here Paul says, now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness. Idolatry, witchcraft, which is the same place that we get the word pharmakia or pharmacia, where we get pharmaceutical. So pharmaceutical, as I covered 2 weeks ago, does not cure a disease. It's only change the form and location of the disease. So people say, I feel healing. Did they really get healing? Or they get a deception of healing? Or they get a poison in their system that changed the disease, so the disease affected them a different way, and in that they got relief. But is the relief real, or is it a new disease they have brought on itself? Well, according to what we understand what pharmaceutical is, or pharmacia is, it's just a temporary relief for another big hit that's coming. So the witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulation, wrath, strife, sedition, heresies. So that word again, witchcraft, is part of it. So a major part of our economy, whether the illegal economy or the legal economy, is pharmacia. And the nations are deceived by it. And this is part of what we do when we talk about drugs and alcohol, what we understand it to be. And so this is part of what happens. So when you look at the society, a lot of what happens in society, people say the person has to be on drugs. And sooner or later, as you follow the news, you find that some of the people will say those statements about they're on drugs. They say, oh, no. If a person do something like that, they have to be on drugs. And you'll be like, oh, no, they're on drugs. More explanation about psychoactive drugs. Psychoactive drugs, pharmaceutical, is a chemical something that changed the brain function. And I copied that by accident. So I'll move on. So notice now, this warning from the DEA, and this warning is in last year April. Last year April they put out this warning, and it's gotten worse because this week they just declared it an emergency, fentanyl emergency. So the DEA warns of increasing mass overdose events involving deadly fentanyl. So I want you to see this here now. So we hear. I'm sure you're going to say you hear about mass murders. We had covered that in the earlier presentation. But have you heard about mass overdose events? You've seen them on the news, but you never thought that this is a phenomenon. I didn't think it was a phenomenon. I shouldn't say you didn't. I didn't think it was a phenomenon. But it's become a phenomenon now for the last few years, that you could have this thing here where I've heard about it all my life. Like, there's a bad set of drugs. A group of people take it and they die, but it's becoming so much of a phenomenon, so recurring, that here we have it. So last year the DEA put out this thing. Notice here, fentanyl is killing Americans at an unprecedented rate, said the DEA administration and Milgram. Already this year, numerous mass overdose events have resulted in dozens of overdoses and deaths. Drug traffickers are driving addiction and increasing their profits by mixing fentanyl with other illicit drugs. Tragically, many overdose victims have no idea they are ingesting deadly fentanyl until it is too late. So fentanyl is one of the opiates that is a synthesized drug. As you probably know, I was reading, I was thinking probably I should have defined fentanyl, but it's so on the news that I'm assuming if you've listened to me on the radio or you watch the news, you probably know what that is. So fentanyl is killing other people, in other words. But they're having these mass deaths where multiple people die at one time. So fentanyl-related mass overdose events characterized as 3 or more overdose occurring close in time and at the same location have happened in at least 7 American cities in the recent months, resulting in 58 overdose and 29 deaths. Cities impacted include, so I'll read it, Wilton Manor in Florida, Austin, Texas. So I just got a call from somebody in Austin, Texas. So thanks for being with us here from Austin. But, you know, they're having mass overdose deaths in your city. Cortez, Colorado, Commerce City, Colorado, Omaha, Nebraska, Omaha. And then St. Louis, Missouri, and Washington, D.C. This is just in 1 month in last April. They're reporting that. They reported, this came out in April, so it happened in March. Right, so keep reading here. Tragic events like these are being driven by fentanyl. Fentanyl is highly addictive, found in all 50 states, and drug traffickers are increasingly mixing it with other illicit drugs. So notice, in all 50 states, because there's people on, will say, well, this is just happening probably in San Francisco and stuff like that. But notice, when you look at the cities, it's happening in both red states and blue states. So that's clear that it's an American problem, not political problem. Notice here, in powder and pill, it's sold as illicit drugs. And in an effort to drive addiction and attract repeat buyers, these mass overdose events typically occur in one of the following recurrent scenarios: when drug dealers sell their products as cocaine, when it's actually contained fentanyl, or when drug dealers sell pills designed to appear nearly identical to legitimate prescription, but are actually fake prescription pills containing fentanyl. This is creating a frightening nationwide trend where many overdose victims are dying after unknowingly ingesting fentanyl, right? So they give them something like a Xanax, a Prozac, whatever, and they think they're buying Xanax. But what they're actually buying is either a watered down Xanax or no Xanax at all. It's just something that looks like Xanax, but it has fentanyl in it. So that the people can get hooked on the high and then come back and keep buying. This is what the DA is reporting. Fentanyl is driving a nationwide overdose epidemic. Look at these numbers now. CDC estimate that in 12-month period ending in October 2021, more than 105,000 Americans died of drug overdoses, with 66% of those deaths related to synthetic opiates like fentanyl. Last year, the United States suffered more fentanyl-related deaths than gun and auto deaths combined. So if you think about all the people dying in America from gun deaths, and you say, wow, that's a lot, and then you think about automobile, fentanyl killed more people in America in 1 year than the combined amount of people dying from gun-related deaths and auto combined, right? So this is what's happening. So when we talk about be sober, be diligent, or be vigilant, your devil adversary going around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may destroy, we understand that this is real. Notice here in Isaiah chapter 28, verse 7 and 8, it says, but they also have heard through wine and through strong drink. How they heard? Through wine and strong drink, right? And they're out of the way. The priests and the prophets have heard through strong drink. They have been swallowed up of wine. They're out of the way through strong drink. They err in vision and stumble in the judgment. For all tables are full of vomit and filthiness, so that they are no place clean. So this describes modernly what all drugs do. As I say, why I read this Bible text, because you want to understand what was going on 3,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, 2,000 years ago. So you understand that what we're dealing with on a mass killing scale, it's just a mass scale, is something that they were dealing with then. It has just become worse, I believe. I don't believe that's just so happened that they were dealing with it. I believe what we're dealing with is something that's worse, because we have these synthetic and we have manufacturing ability to manufacture purer drugs, more potent drugs. So I believe what they're dealing with is something worse. We're dealing with worse, but they were dealing with back then. And this was the priests. So imagine if the priests are living like this, how the people are living. How are the regular people living? Notice in Genesis 3, verse 4, it says, "And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die." So this is a problem when, how do you communicate to somebody to stay away from tobacco, to stay away from marijuana, to stay away from opiates, synthetic or real, natural, to stay away from these dangerous chemicals that are killing people or substances? Because the same lie that Satan told Adam and Eve, primarily Eve, and then later on Adam believed it, is the same lie that is being told people, that you can take drugs and you shall not surely what? You shall not surely die. But if you take the drugs, you'll die. Notice the Declaration of Independence of the United States of America. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of what? Happiness. Pursuit of happiness. So when we consider this, somebody could say, Lloyd is right there. I see drugs all over this. How are you going to tell me that that is not saying I should smoke the weed? But you find that when you look at, and what we're going to look at for the rest of the time here, drugs and alcohol, you find that it goes against life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That those who are going after the wine, when it moves itself right in the cup, is those who are going to end up losing their life, their liberty, and their pursuit of happiness. But yet, somebody could read that and say, that's what America is all about. And the fact of the matter, why this is so important, because here we are in a country that seems to be the pharmaceutical, well, we're in a country, the pharmaceutical capital of the world, but in a country where illicit drugs especially is used rampantly beyond any other country. And that, at the end of the day, where I'm talking to you from, not the exact location, but the state is the pharmaceutical capital of the world. So I'm in a state that's the pharmaceutical capital of the world, but it seems like the users are actually in other states. I guess they're just exporting their products. And so drugs is a major part of life, and it can be seen that probably with this concept here of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is the philosophical basis. Don't quote me on it, don't say I'm wrong or right. Listen to what I'm saying. It seems like it's the philosophical basis why the country is one of the most rampant countries when it comes on to drug use. Now, I know you probably find an island somewhere in the Pacific that use more drugs than the average 100,000 people in America do. But I'm not saying as a major developed country, we find that I wonder often is if it's this concept that's supposed to make us live a good life end up become the problem where people use to say, because I'm in America and because the Declaration of Independence of America exists for me to pursue life, liberty, and pursue happiness, because somebody could have said the Second Amendment does that, freedom of speech, freedom of freedom. So we wonder. I wonder, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When you read that, do you hear drugs and alcohol? Do you see more steak, more chicken and fish and bacon? What do you see with this? Or do you see a life that is a healthier life? What do you get from it? This is Ellen G. White's statement 100 years ago from Spalding and Megan's collection. Look at this paragraph here with me as I read with you. Page 140. Spalding and Megan collection. Notice here. To a large extent, Satan carried out his plan. The Lord's property is embezzled. God is robbed. We're the property. The means that has been lent to man to realize the necessity to the poor and to uplift and sustain the fallen in righteousness and truth is used to please and glorify self. So all that money that is going to drugs could be help the society. I mean, think about it. The more drugs is the more poverty and more wretchedness we see. More alcohol is the more poverty and wretchedness we see. Notice here, from the beginning to the end, the crime of tobacco using, of opium and drug medication as its origin in perverted knowledge. So it's knowledge, it's wisdom, it's very ingenious that people can figure out how to come up with these drugs. But it's perverted knowledge, he says. So notice here now, if you read about drugs, about alcohol in the Bible, you take it to her time 100 and something years ago. Now it's being included tobacco in that. Opium. The opium was already on the market, and they started to go to deeper, more synthesized stuff and more pure stuff. But this is time, like a snapshot of her time, what was flooding the society. So drug medication as its origin in perverted knowledge. It is through plucking and eating poisonous fruit, through the intricacies of names that the common people do not understand, that thousands and tens of thousands of lives are lost. Because sometimes you can't even keep up with the name of some of these things. Like, there's this one, that's why I just decided to do this. I'm just going to take a few of these drugs and I talk about them and I move on. Because the point is that there's psychoactive drugs that mess up your life. Anyhow, I'll read it again. Notice it says here, through the intricacies of names that the common people do not understand. Because what is it with the intricacy of the name? You don't know what it does to your body. And they don't tell you, they say, oh, it's going to make you feel better. But when you get into, what is the side effect? Oh, we don't talk about that. Because that's the problem. Notice here, the people do not understand that thousands and tens of thousands of lives are lost. Remember, when we're talking about one, they say overdose, but we're talking about people are dying every day, and it's because of the long-term effect of the drugs. Period. Notice here, this great knowledge, supposed by men to be so wonderful, God did not mean that man should have. So she's saying, listen, this is not what God wants us to do. God didn't want us to go down that path, but we have. And we have figured it out. Sad. They are using the poisonous product that Satan himself has planted to take the place of the tree of life, whose leaf are for the healing of the nation. So notice here, people have maladies, people have problems, and they go to these drugs to solve the problem. The drugs create another problem because it's Satan's trickery to kill them and to destroy their lives. Notice here, men are dealing in liquors and narcotics that are destroying the human family. Deadly mixtures are used that make men mad and murder and violence are prevailing everywhere. So notice she's saying is that these mixtures, she put it that says a lot of the murder, as I showed in the morning, as I say, you'd have to watch the morning to see, where the NIH and stuff have done enough research, Columbia University have done enough research to show that most of what we see when we talk about mass murders, home invasion, robberies, all these things that's going on, a large percent of them is happening because of drugs and alcohol. These various different narcotic and pharmaceutical. That's my burden here. See, I just wanted to bring you some proof of that. So when you see the next mass shooting, hopefully I'm not part of, I don't get taken out. But if you see the next one, remember, the person who's doing it, there's the larger percent of the people who do these things, they are heavy drug users and heavy alcohol users. Keep that in mind. But just in case you say, well, you're saying that, then I show you just now that 100 years ago, Ellen G. White was saying that. And over 2,000 years ago, 2,500, 3,000 years ago, probably 2,500, 3,000 years ago, or 2,500, Solomon was saying it. So this is not coincidence. And if the various different government organization is saying that most of the time you see people murdering their family, it's not because there's just an issue in the family.
is because, as he says, Proverbs 20 verse 3, he said, wine is a mocker. I want to make sure I give you the right text. And I just, because again, it's a whole presentation in my mind, but I'm presenting in two swings. So it's kind of hard for you to get it. So I want you to get this. That's so much slides I have to go to get to that. So notice here, it says there, 20 verse 1, as I said, wine is a mocker and strong drink is raging. So here, over 2,500 years ago, the psalmist, the Solomon conclude that the wine itself make you raging mad, make you a raging bull. Then Andrew White comes 2,000 years later and said, yes, it caused people to kill, it caused people to murder people, it caused people all of that stuff. And then here now, the modern scientific community is coming out and saying, yeah, it's actually the drugs that cause most of the people to do mass murders. It's not actually those people who want to be bad. Not trying to excuse what they're doing. I'm just saying this is what Andrew White is saying. And if you understand that, then hopefully I don't make you dizzy. Hopefully tomorrow's not showing us. All right, if you understand that, you understand what's going on. That's where my point is. So to me, this is like current events. I want you to get it. 2,000-something years ago, the Bible concludes that wine makes you raging mad. 100 years ago, what was going on in life since we didn't live here, over 100 years ago, Andrew is writing that said what was going on here at the time, the place was flooded with opium and all these things. And people were mad. And she's saying here that it's making men mad, murder, and violent. This is the drugs and alcohol pushing in primarily. It's making you raging. So you can have and then the pharmaceutical, the researchers come out and say, yes, part of the reason why other people do suicide is because of the drugs. They do homicide is because of the drugs. I'm telling you what I'm saying here, just in case you think I'm just here talking about, I don't want you to take drugs. Yes, I don't want you to take drugs. I don't want you to drink alcohol. Yes, I don't want you to drink alcohol. But a secondary, third dimensional thing I'm trying to tell you here is that when you look in the society about people wiping out their family, it's drugs and alcohol is most of the time. We're going to go by with the stats that I read this morning. 65% of the time or more is drugs and alcohol. The person would never have done those crimes if it wasn't for drugs and alcohol. Luke chapter 1 verse 15. Luke chapter 1 verse 15. For he shall be great in the sight of the Lord, and shall drink neither wine. Let's talk about John the Baptist. Drink neither wine nor strong drink. And he shall be filled with the Holy Ghost, even from his mother's womb. Listen, I know you're listening to me, but, this is not just, the Spirit of the Lord is on him, and that's it. Part of John the Baptist's success is John the Baptist stayed away from drugs and alcohol. And drugs and alcohol was in Christ's time. Opium is not something new. So keep in mind, because some will say, no, it's just the Spirit of the Lord be upon you. No. Christ was sober all his life. This is not by accident. Where it says, where we read this morning, a leader should not drink and take drugs. It's not by accident. This is drugs and alcohol. To me, it shouldn't be for anybody, but if poor people want to continue their life, that's what they should take it. Because they'll definitely take them out, finish them off. Leviticus chapter 10, verse 8 and 9. Leviticus chapter 10, verse 8 and 9. This is the Lord speaking to, you want to live a worthless life, then I can tell you how to. You want to live a life where your organs are being destroyed, your body's being destroyed. Well, the Bible tells you how to. You can just do the opposite of what the Bible says. Notice here, Leviticus 10, verse 8 and 9. And the Lord spake unto Aaron, saying, do not drink wine, nor strong drink, thou nor thy son with thee, when ye go into the tabernacle of the congregation, lest you die. It shall be a statute forever throughout all your generations. This was the result of, I think, Hophni and Phinehas got struck down. And because they got struck down, Then Nahab and Abihu, thank you. Nadab and Abihu got struck down. After they got struck down, the Lord said, listen, don't appear before me drunk. So we should, as Christians, we shouldn't even be worshiping God. We should be sober all the time. Very important. Notice again here, Numbers chapter 6, verse 1, 2, and 3. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when either man or woman shall separate themselves to vow a vow of a Nazarite, to separate themselves unto the Lord, he shall separate himself from wine and strong drink, and shall drink no vinegar of wine or vinegar of strong drink, neither shall he drink any liquor of grapes, nor eat moist grapes or dried grapes. So somebody said, wait a minute, wasn't Christ a Nazarene? And he's supposed to be a Nazarene until 30? So we know Christ was in the best of mental health, that say until he started his public ministry, he didn't do no, I don't believe I'm not saying he did any drugs or any alcohol or anything in his public ministry. Christ was sober for 30 years to preach the gospel, to come up with thoughts and to understand society, understand geopolitics, understand righteousness, the everlasting gospel, all of that stuff. One need to be sober. One need to have all the faculty. A true religion is a thinking person religion. You need your brain and all the power of your brain. If you want to be successful in this life and you want to stay successful, one has to be sober. One has to repair the brains, the nervous system, the thought flow, the pattern of thinking has to be very linear, very orderly, very disciplined. That's the only way to maintain a certain successful life. So here, a Nazarite could not do cider, could not do any liquor, could not do any vodka, could not do anything, could not do no fentanyl, carfentanil, could not do no opium, could not do anything. No grape juice. So notice even break it down more. No liquor, no eating moist grapes. The grapes has to be fresh. And not even eating dried grapes. I think it's even impressive that Jesus says, I will not drink even of the, he wouldn't even drink of the, eat of the vine or anything until we come in the kingdom. Very interesting. Nothing to do with, even if it's grapes, nothing. That means that there is no opportunity for any type of stimulation to the brain, any type of poison into the brain. Everything has to be fresh. And somebody would say that's an extreme. Well, for me, I view that as very good. It depends on how you look at things. I view that as very excellent. No opportunity for any type of, not even for a second, for the brain to go out of whack. Need to function your brain and need it clicking. If you're doing business, if you're doing certain things in life, man, you need your brain to be in good health. Notice here, I'm going to give another example here of a drug. This is a class of drug. This isn't a drug that give you Prozac and Zoloft and Ritalin. I think Ritalin and Prozac would be from these drugs. So this is called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. All right, so SSRI. And this was in one of the bodies of, or the brains of, one of the Columbine shooting, I think the Harris guy from the Columbine shooting fame. One of them, not both of them, but one of them was found to be on a SSRI. I think it was on either Ritalin or Prozac or Zoloft, one of them. You look it up, you see what I'm talking about. So this is why it's important. So remember my bird, I'm just telling you not to take drugs and alcohol. That's my aim here. As you say, what has to do with the theme? The theme is, for this year, is the value of a sheep, the shepherd, the sheep, and the sheepfold. So since you listen to me, you're part of me. My aim as a spiritual leader, guide, a preacher, is to try to tell you that it's bad to do drugs and alcohol. I would want to encourage everybody that listen to me not to use drugs and alcohol. And we're not talking about emergency and all the other side notes. You're just using drugs and alcohol on a regular basis, recreationally, and all that. That's my point here. But what does it have to do with being a shepherd? Well, that's the point. And what does it have to do with avoiding pitfalls? And, well, that's what we're talking. I'm trying to teach you here. There's some pitfalls to avoid in society. But people have depression, so what do they do for it? That's a different story. But I'm going to tell you, this is one of the things that they give to people. And it's one of the biggest class of drugs that is used. But remember, my secondary burden here, I'm showing you that when you turn on the news, and if you read 10 stories of people killing their family members, remember, at least probably 6 of those stories, the person will hammed up on drugs and alcohol. Just keep that in mind. Just put in perspective how important it is for you. If you're young, you plan to get married, look for somebody that don't use drugs. And if you're a guy, don't use drugs. Because a lot of guys, not all of them, but a lot of them end up beating their wives, abusing their wife, and just don't live a good life. You want to be able to be sober. And if you on drugs, get off drugs and stay sober. Your family will love you for it. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. This one is a big one. Are a class of drugs that are typically used as antidepressants. So people are feeling depressed, they want something to keep them up. And it's treating from major depression disorder, anxiety, so the person feel anxious about stuff, and other psychological conditions. So that's the link there. You can go read it for yourself. These are the side effects. I only list 5 because there's a lot of side effects. So I only want to point out 5. So increased risk of bone fracture. So you're taking something because you feel depressed. I know you have an increased risk of bone fracture. These are common side effects. These are not rare side effects. So here's the thing about, remember, Satan said to us that you shall not surely die. And you're taking the drugs because you feel depressed, you're clinically depressed, and you have a depressive disorder, anxiety, you feel anxious. And now you're taking these drugs, and these drugs now are going to solve one problem, quote unquote, solve one problem, but it's going to increase your risk of bone fracture. Also, it increases your risk of akathisia. I think I'm saying it wrong, but you tell me. Which is a feeling of inner restlessness where the person can't sit still. That's a quick way to whatever. So remember, the person have anxiety disorder. They take this drug to solve their anxiety disorder. And the drug now causes them to feel in an inner feeling that they can't sit still and they have anxiety. So did the drug win? All right. Also, this drug, one of the major side effects of it, this set of drugs, because SSRIs, as I say, Ritalin, Prozac, Zoloft, is suicide ideation. So the person take the drug because they're feeling depressed. They have other psychological problem. They probably don't feel like the woman or the man they used to feel like. They take it, and now they start having thoughts of suicide with other risk factors, which could be also thoughts of homicide. So all of a sudden they're taking this drug and they feel depressed and they start saying, man, I feel to kill myself. Problem. This is going to know my main, remember, I'm talking about don't take drugs, don't use alcohol. But my background secondary thought is a lot of this suicide, remember, this is our big drugs used in America, and America is one of the major places for suicide. So somebody say, it's just America. Or is it a drug problem we have? Notice here, these are not minor. Mass murders, how much of them were on these drugs, these levels of these type of drugs? And they have homicidal ideation, suicidal ideation. They feel like killing themselves and killing people. And how much of them, after they killed people, they said they were, the girl that killed the person in Chattanooga, Tennessee, this is the 2 recent one, Chattanooga, Tennessee, she was on treatment. The young man that was just killed the people in Kentucky, he was under treatment and he has CTE. So keep that in mind. I can show you 97% of these cases, I always pay attention to these cases, they're on some form of treatment and drugs and psychoactive drugs, or they're heavy drinkers. Notice a suicidal ideation, that means they have a constant thought that I want to kill myself, I'll kill myself. But then they have this thing before, but the drugs now start putting it. Sexual dysfunction. Some people would want to kill themselves if they have this. Sexual dysfunction, right? They're taking the drugs, so now they're just sort of feeling depressed, but now they're taking this thing, And this thing now, and if you go on, look it up when you have time. Just put in serotonin, SSRI. Just put SSRI and then just go to the Wikipedia page and read it. Wherein even the reproductive parts, you feel numb. That means they can't sense nothing. And other feelings. I probably should write that for you so you can see what it is. It's amazing what this drug does. You're just depressed. And you take this, and all of a sudden, your old nervous system, immune system is numb. But here it goes, you numb you, but the last one on that list is the biggie. This is why the reason I believe that this thing here causes problems. But everything nervous is numb. Imagine you could take the person's sexual organ and probably bang it like this, and they'd be like, I don't feel nothing. Don't laugh. I don't feel nothing, because I'm numb. And so the person will be like, and then they have a suicidal ideation. And then the last one is the big one. And you tell me, no, this is not me talking now. This is the medical system saying this is what their drugs do. Emotional blunting. So what had happened now? This emotional blunting is the biggie. Numb. I'm numb. It's not just my sexual reproductive organ is numb. And my brain is numb. And my hand is numb. Everything is numb. I'm numb to emotions. I'm numb. How did they come up with these drugs? So you have a pig, a cow, is going on a shoot to get killed. It's going on a shoot to get killed. And he sensed that the pig or the cow before him got killed. So he's panicking. So they said, we give him a drug. And that drug can make him calm down. Blunt his feelings. And then they say, what if we could give it to humans? They give it to humans and they blunt their feelings so they don't feel depressed, they don't feel happy. Is that a good thing? Could be. Now I go into a room like what happened over there in wherever, and I saw shooting people and they're screaming. Do I go and shoot the next person? Because what happened? Emotionally blunt. Emotionally, I just don't feel it. Screaming don't do anything for me. Don't do anything for the pigs. Because what happened to the pig? The pig see the other pig screaming and he's going to get killed. And he don't feel no way, so he just keep going. This is what we're doing in our society. Here's, continue reading here. There's more to read. As I said, don't take my word for it. Go read National Institute of Health and stuff like that. But I'll give you these two caveats. This is right on the Wikipedia page. Because when we share anything here, I want to make sure I share things that you can go find yourself. There's no secret in what we do here. We're not trying to teach you anything that you can't find from. Notice I almost never quote from alternative websites. I almost always quote when I'm doing the morning programs, when I do preaching here. I must 100% quote from all the major places that I need to quote from. That means National Institute of Health, Wikipedia, all the major, Columbia University, all the major newspapers, I quote from them. Why do you think I do that? Because I do that because I want to make sure whatever I'm teaching you understand, you can just go find information yourself. There's no alternative, nothing I'm teaching here. The mainline information is shocking because most people don't understand. When you go through the side effects of these things, it's amazing what you read. The side effects are worse than the cure itself. Meta-analysis now. Suicide risk in children. So there's suicide risk in adults, so that's risk in children. I just pulled the children one for you. But you can read the suicide risk in adults. And I put a caveat to the controversy for you. So meta-analysis of SSRIs, of short duration randomized clinical trials have found that SSRI use is related to a higher risk of suicidal behavior in children. So when we say children, we're talking about people under 12, right? And adolescents, 13 and above. For instance, in 2004, U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, analysis of clinical trials on children with major depressive disorders. So they have a major problem. It's a real problem they have that's difficult to deal with. A child depressed. Let me ask you, a child depressed, it could be neurological, genetics, or it could be what else? A child depressed, a 10-year-old depressed. It could be what? Food, what else? Child is depressed. Food, what else? What else could make a child depressed? All right, so the parents taking drugs. What else? Okay, so in the womb. What else? You guys supposed to get this right, right? It's a child having depression. So a 10-year-old comes for you and say, I'm depressed, major depressed. What else? They're born with it. Okay, the food they're eating, but what is the biggest thing? Huh? It's the environment they live in. It's the home life. That would be the number one. The food is part of it. But I don't think just so the burgers and the hot dog is doing it. Right? The environment in the home. Right? They're imitating. They see parents always screaming and crying on and living crazy lifestyle and, and they're in that environment. So there's a pig again, a pig going down the chute, and you see the pig before him get killed. And what do? You say, oh, we can sedate that pig and make him not feel anything, numb him. So the environment the pig can be in, and the pig is numb, the environment didn't change, right? But something in the pig's mind changed. 2004, FDA comes now and say, we look at all the clinical trials on children with major depressive disorder and found statistical significant increases of the risk of possible suicide ideation and suicidal behavior. Start probably cutting their risk by about 80%. And of agitation and hostility by about 130%. What is 130% to you? If 10 kids have major depressive, they go on Ritalin and they do a clinical trial on those kids. And 100 of them went on Ritalin or Prozac or Zoloft or whatever. 130% represent what? How much of them have? Huh? All of them and some extra one that they didn't have in the trial. That's all. It's 100 and 130%. So where did they get the other 30 kids from? Even kids from the neighborhood joining in the trial and said, we depressed too. I know that's not the case, but I'm saying. It's an increase. It's just an increase. It's an increase. All right? So, there you got it. No, so that's for children. Sound like something good? Where a 10-year-old now start thinking to kill himself and start actually acting upon it. So I like, imagine take a knife to the throat and, right? Controversies now. So somebody said, Lloyd, ain't not like that. They're just making up stuff. They're just trying to make SSRIs look bad. And make it like say it's worse than the cure is worse than the disease. I think is it Ernest Hemingway say that what's if the disease what is it? So you take the drug and you stop the disease but lose the patient. Something like that he said. So you stop the disease but you still lose the patient. The patient still die. What's the point of the drugs? Anyhow, it says a study examining publication of results from the FDA evaluated antidepressant concluded that those with favorable results was much more likely to be published than those with negative results. So say you come and you did a study. Government pay for it, the FDA pay for it, so you already got your money. And you say, hey, listen, my study is showing that says these SSRIs, they're very negative. I got a bad result. These things are dangerous. They wouldn't publish it. You still get your money, but you're not going to get published. Notice here, furthermore, an investigation of 185 meta-analysis on antidepressants found that 79% of them had authors affiliated in some way to pharmaceutical companies and that they were reluctant to report caveats for antidepressants. So, what's happening? Almost 80% of all the reports on any of these SSRIs were reports that they would not publish if they had a negative, and the people who are doing the reports and stuff they were linked to pharmaceutical companies that were producing it. So what is they're not going to hurt, you know, like I say, you never bite the hand that feed you. You can't kill the goose that laid the SSRI egg. Psalm chapter 69, verse 21. Psalm 69, verse 21. They gave me also gall for meat, and in my thirst they gave me vinegar to drink. Many people, I've been trying to understand this myself, that believe that this word gall is referring to opium or some opiate. That what they did when they dipped the alcohol or vinegar in, they had also gall in it or opium to numb Christ. And well, we're going to read Matthew chapter 27, verse 33 through 34. So it was predicted in Psalms that this was going to happen to Jesus Christ. And now we read the fulfillment. Matthew chapter 27, verse 33 to 34. So when we talk about drugs and alcohol, I remember opium has been around. It's a plant that poppy, they call it the poppy, has been around for a while. Notice here, Matthew 27, verse 33 and 34. And when they were come unto a place called Golgotha, that is to say a place of a skull, they gave him vinegar to drink, mingled with gall again. And when he had tasted thereof, he would not drink it. So he realized what they were doing to him. Remember, he had to, at every given time, Christ had to be in his right mind. What opium would do would put him in his wrong mind, and then Satan could trick him. Because that's what it is. Remember, wine is a mocker, but you could say gall is a mocker, vinegar is a mocker, and strong drink is raging. You're not in your right mind when you're on drugs. And Satan will come in and tempt you, and you will fall. That's why, as I say, increase in STDs now. All these diseases are increasing because people have no inhibition. They can't make right decisions. More crime, more murder, stealing, all kind of stuff happen because people are not in the right mind. So Christ here rejected what many people believe is a derivative of opium. On the cross, he would not allow that to benumb him. So somebody say, so if I'm in pain, should I take the drugs? I'm not saying that. You're going to make up your mind what you do. But I'm just simply saying you understand. Christ was about to die, and he could not sin. He could not make a mistake. Drugs and alcohol, what's the mother read this morning about the vinegar, or what we call cider, would have given him numb his brain so he would not feel the pain, but then he could have sinned. He could have made a mistake, and he said, no, okay, no, I'm not going to take that. He's thirsty. Imagine you say, I'm thirsty, I need some water, and they say, oh, here's some vinegar and some opium. All the way to the end, they try to trick Christ. I pray to God that we will be faithful like that all the way to the end. We stay away from drugs and alcohol, never get tricked into it. And that's why I'm going through this exercise here with you. I go through this exercise because my intention is to stay sober and to stay vigilant. And I'm trying to be sober with you here and be vigilant. Find other solution. Find motherwort. How about that one? Find motherwort. Find holy basil. Find ginseng, ginkgo biloba. Find other herbs for your brain. God will bless you and you stay focused. Notice here, Proverbs chapter 14, verse 34. Proverbs 14, verse 34. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. It is a sin to partake of drugs and alcohol. It is a sin to get high on drugs. It's a sin to sit down every day smoking weed and stuff like that, and destroying the sensitive nervous system. It is a sin to numb the nerves. It's a sin and I'll say more, but I'll stop there. Take care of your body, take care of yourself. Isaiah 58 verse 1 says, cry loud and spare not, and lift up thy voice like a trumpet, and show my people their transgression, and the house of Israel their sin. We're in a world where people are killing themselves with these drugs and alcohol. There's so much overdose deaths. I've dealt with people even in this county that have died. They're not with us anymore from drug overdose. I dealt with people, like I always say, if for every young male that I've dealt with in this area, if even 2 or 3 of them, church-wise, we'll be in a different congregation. But so many young men in this area, they're floating on drugs and alcohol, floating. They don't walk. They don't even walk on water. They walk in air because they're so high that they could touch the sky. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 25 through 27. This is such a scourge in our society. So much drug users, so much alcohol abusers. There's people that they get up every day and they want to hit down a six-pack every day. And their body's just being wrecked. Their brain is wrecked. They're social. I've known people right now, they're living single because the wife just couldn't take it anymore. And the wife had to leave them. Messed up their bodies, their minds, their family because of drugs and alcohol. So sad. So we got to stay sober. We got to find rehab, find counseling, find a church, find friends, find support, find God, find something, but stay sober. Whatever you do, stay sober. If you're not sober, get sober. If you're watching me and you see this here, I'm telling you the philosophical reason, the medical reason, the health reason why drugs and alcohol doesn't work. Listen to what I'm saying and investigate what I'm doing and go get sober and just stay away from drugs. Because I know some people watch this after it's posted. Please, if you watch this after the fact, just get sober, go find a rehab, find some counselor. Stay off the drugs, stay off the alcohol. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 25 through 27. And every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible. We have a greater purpose in life, not just to live a good life here on this earth, but to make it in the kingdom. I therefore so run, not as uncertainly, so fight I, not as one that beateth the air, but I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. Our intention is to keep our bodies under subjection. We want to have the best experience. We want to be able to have the most heightened experience. We want to be able to have the full function of our minds and our bodies as we get older. And we want to be able to be in a situation that if we do get sick and we still have opportunity, we can recover faster. And so no matter what bad we've done to ourselves in the past, the aim is that we want to be able to make the right decision today. As Christ says, today, if you hear his voice, harden not your heart. Today is the time of visitation. Whatever decisions we make in the past, we want to be able to make better decisions going forward. We want to be able to do things to make our health improve instead of doing things to beat down our health. You know, somebody was talking this morning, and she was saying, some young men, normally as they say, young and foolish, say, is this the don't religion? Yes, there's a lot of things I don't do, and there's a lot of things I do, as she says. There's things we do. And so, again, we do the things that we need to do, but the things that we need to avoid, we avoid them. And we are very clear on this. We avoid like the plague. And we try to avoid the plague also. But we avoid the plague, like the plague, drugs and alcohol. Because we've seen from I've been a child to now, I've never seen somebody on weed, never seen somebody on ganja, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, opiate, crack, cocaine, and they did well. They didn't have good physical, family, whatever. But I've seen people, I've dealt with people get off the drugs, get off the alcohol, and started to clean up their life, find the Lord, and the Lord bless them. Started to eat right, exercise, do those things. And that's what you do. So we don't do the stupid young lifestyle thing. And there's old people doing it now because they say they're old not to go to work so they can just drink. And they look like they're just whipping their body because they're getting older and they're putting all that dangerous substance. I say this before I close. This is my closing psalms here. Me and tomorrow we're coming up, I was talking about it, and we were saying, why is it that people look so, because we saw a lady on the side of the street where we were coming here, and she looked whipped, looked beaten, like so she's just, she's like, she knew Methuselah, basically. So, and I say, I think it's because when you consume alcohol, why alcohol make people look so terrible? I know other drugs that do that, but alcohol. And I say, I think because alcohol, it's such a dangerous thing. It has so much side effect, and you consume so much of it constantly, and it's looked upon positively by society, that the person have less inhibitions because there's no social shaming. But long term, you look at the person, you'll be like, man, they probably been around from energy white time or something. But it's not true. It's just they just whip their body so hard with that drugs. So drugs and alcohol, tobacco, and other addictive and dangerous substance pushers almost won, but there is still a remnant. So though they seem like they have the most of the world, most of the young people drugged up in our society and shutting up each other, that's why the 20-something-year-old, they don't stop killing people because they're hamped up on drugs. It seemed like they won, but there is a remnant. There's some people who are not going down that road. And I pray to God that you are part of that you stay sober and you stay vigilant. Watch what they're doing. But they aim to use doctors, to use pharmaceutical, to use the Mexican cartel, to use the American cartels, because only Mexico have cartels, America have cartels. To use everybody to get people on drugs. But we want to be able to stay away from their drugs. We don't want to take their drugs and we don't want to take the alcohol. We want to stay away from that stuff. Psalms 124 verse 1, say a song of the grace of David. If it had not been the Lord who was on our side, nor may Israel say. If it had not been the Lord who was on our side, when men rose up against us, then they had swallowed us up quickly when their wrath was kindled against us. Then the waters had overwhelmed us, the streams had gone over our souls. Then the proud waters had gone over our souls. Blessed be the Lord who had not given us as prey to their teeth. Our soul is escaped as a bird out of the snare of the fowlers. The snare is broken and we are escaped. Our help is in the name of the Lord who had made the heaven and the earth. So I tell you, I thank the Lord, whether, as I say, you stayed away from the drugs, or if you're on the drugs, you came off the drugs. I remember a brother, I can say it, a brother that, I won't say his name, but I'll say this, a brother I used to worship with, and still worship with, I think. And he said to me, Lloyd, I'm glad I came off, get out of the drug scene at a certain time. And I said, why? He said, because I believe if I was in it right now, with the drugs on the market, like fentanyl, he said, I think I would be dead. And I said, man, you know, they say like the Lord is a on-time God. That's what the black people them say, right? They always come up with this nice saying. So the Lord is an on-time God. I don't know if anybody say that, but that's what they say. I always laugh when they say that, because if the Lord was on our side and make us escape just in time, and they say in the nick of time, you like walk over here, and next thing you know, the whole building fall down behind you. And you'll be like, man, I just got away just in time. God is an on-time God. Then, as he says here, he says, the waters would overwhelm us. Our soul escape as a bird out of the snare of the fowlers. The snare is broken. We are escaped. So, like how the brethren said, God is an on-time God. And so I'm glad I learned certain things, and I'm glad I'm here to teach you those things. That listen, you can live a happy life, the best life, sober. I want you to stay sober. I want you to stay from drugs, stay from alcohol, all other addictive substance, because they have side effects and they wreck your body, wreck your mind. May God bless you for the rest of the Sabbath. May God bless you for the rest of this week. Be part of the remnant. Just stay away from those things. God will bless you, and you will know that, say, God is an on-time God. This message, I think, is on time, because there's many people, some people listen to me here, they're younger. Just stay away from drugs. Don't go down a certain road. It's better, as I say, an ounce of cure is better than a pound of prevention, or an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. Don't try to solve a problem. Try to stay away from the trouble. May God bless you. Stay sober. Stay diligent. Next Sabbath, we'll be hearing from Brother Green. May God bless you.
Please take your hymnals in hand and turn to hymn number 327. I'd rather have Jesus, hymn number 327. Hymn 327. I'd rather have Jesus than anything this world affords today. He's fairer than lilies of rarest bloom. He's sweeter than honey from out the comb. He's all that my hungering spirit needs. I'd rather have Jesus and let him lead than to be the king of a vast domain, or be held in sin's dread sway. I'd rather have Jesus than anything this world affords today.
Thank you for joining us here at Covenant Adventist Church Bible Study Hour. At this time, I would like to invite you to pray with us as we close the Sabbath. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you, dear Lord, for your word has so much meaning and such deep thoughts that it would be impossible for us to comprehend it if we're on anything as alcohol or any other types of drugs. We pray, dear Heavenly Father, that these substances be out of our lives, and let us go beyond and speak against those things which are hurting not only society but the church.